Welcome back to the Healthy Business Podcast. I'm Ty King from American Business Engine, and with me,
Jessica Tolliver, CAM Collaborative.
and Collaborative. How are you?
I'm good.
Yeah?
Crazy week, but I'm good.
Yeah, I hear that. Crazy week. I'm trying to think of what all it did. It's too early in the morning. Now, this is the first cup of coffee I've had. Cup of coffee. After this, I'll be able to speak.
I had my first one already, but I had the glare cup, so the green glare cup.
Oh, yeah.
My other cup got broken, so I now have to get a non-green glare cup.
Or dark green or something like that. This jacket and the shirt, surprisingly, there's no problems. I looked at it.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm visible.
Awesome.
Even in the green room. So you had a subject that you wanted to talk about to sort of add on to the clothing. We talked about what you're like. Wow,
what to wear?
Yeah.
God,
you told me that all I did.
I did because I've only had one cup of coffee also.
There you go. So, and that's actually our most watched and listened to episode is the what to wear for business, that type of thing. I guess people are really trying to figure that out. So,
well, I mean, to the point I was making when we were talking is that it's dramatically changed in the last 10 years. That business at one point was, everyone knew what business looked like. Business attire, business casual. It was, you could pretty much look it up in the dictionary. Everyone knew what that looked like. And now that has completely changed. Not only across industries, it's not just the more easygoing type businesses that are allowing more easygoing dress, but even attorneys. You're seeing attorneys dress more casually or present themselves more casually. And the point that I brought up was we talked all about clothing, but we didn't talk about the more personal things like hair color, body art, body jewelry, things like that.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So going along with how you don't have to dress, traditionally how you thought that you were going to have to, at least for business. Like you said, you're very comfortable in the canvas type shoe that you wear and yoga pants and stuff. Tara, my wife, wears those to work all the time. So it's just changed, definitely changed. Not only with the new generations that are making up their workforce now, but also because in the past few years of COVID, it's changed things. People being able to work at home. So I guess the view of I don't even know how to put it. So if you have a tattoo or colored hair, there's usually some sort of dogma, that comes along with that.
Well, when I was growing up and in my early 20s, it was if you got a tattoo, you needed to make sure it was covered. So it always had to be above the wrist, below the collar, and there was even places that wouldn't tattoo you outside of those places out on your body. And you just knew that you had, if you wanted to make it in business, you had to be able to cover that up. And in many cases, you had to. So if you had something on your arm, you would be expected to wear long sleeves in the summer because you couldn't show that tattoo.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't really have any that are visible anywhere else besides my neck. My neck one is the one that's visible, unless I wear a t-shirt that I've got up and down my arms. But it's not on, I'm just trying to hide them. And so, I don't know. I think it's just such an outdated view whenever people, in hiring positions or even HR are looking at people and be like, okay, you got tattoos. Well, I don't know if you can work here or not.
Well, and that used to be the thing, and very much so.
Still is in some cases. I sit at the coffee shop in North Little Rock. I'll sit there waiting for meetings and stuff, but you'd be surprised how many people go there to have an interview process with their potential employees. Kind of weird. I was like, why would you take them to? Well, I don't understand. A coffee shop of all places, and we have a public interview. I can clearly hear what you're saying at your table. You know what I mean? And so, anyways, a couple of weeks ago, there was one company. There was a couple of guys there that were interviewing somebody else. Trying to look for him. See, are you a good fit for this position? Everything we've talked about before. Are you going to match company culture? What do you have to offer? What are your expectations? What are your goals? And all that stuff is great. But then they got onto the subject of tattoos and how they did not want tattoos showing. That was their big thing. And I was like, really? We're in 2022 where most people have tattoos. is like you're a minority now if you don't have
Right.
one. I don't understand. Why are we?
Well, I'm old, so I still take notice if I walk in and I'm going to give blood and my phlebotomist has a tattoo. It doesn't bother me, but I
Right.
still take notice of that. So it's just odd to see people. I have clients that are prominent attorneys that have neck tattoos,
Of course, yeah.
and there was a time when if you had a neck tattoo, and I have one too. This is not me judging. If you had a neck tattoo, that was a sign that you were on the wrong side of the tracks.
Yeah.
You've done some
Yakuza or something. Yeah.
So it's something that's been changing, and for sure, and I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I'll just tell you my experience, I guess. When I first entered the workforce, my first job was working at a Dollar General, and I had blue and green hair that was about shoulder length. I had, I'm trying to think else. What else did I have? I know I had my ear pierced at that time at the top. But back then, this is 2003, I guess, and they made me wear a hat, right? So, well, it's kind of ironic I still wear hats, but anyways, so they made me wear a hat over it, and then they were like, they were of course very appreciative. They always told me I did a great job and all this, but then they were like, well, corporate's coming in, and they may not like your hair,
Mm-hmm.
even though it's hidden under a hat, and I was like, because it was oh man. The old wretchy angry man that you can think of be the one that would be like against tattoos and that type of stuff, and he was the one that came in and never said anything to me though, just sort of brushed by. But I know there are places that will not even consider hiring you if you have colored hair. I've had every color hair you can think of. I've had colored braids and cornrows and everything. I used to wear contacts that made my eyes, either white or cat eyes or just black X's, like a cartoon character.
Mm-hmm.
And I had 3 piercings here across my lip. And so there were some places that were fine with, oh man. So I worked at a tele-fundraising company. That's what they called it. Yeah, so we're calling, trying to get donations for the Special Olympics. Usually calling people that have already donated before, but anyways. Being in a call center, I could look any way I wanted to. That like they did not care. Like I could come in dressed like Ronald McDonald, you know what I mean, and have a big tinfoil hat on top of my head. Whatever, they don't care. And so because the people never see you because you're just on the phone. So that was interesting. Never had that experience, before I went to there. Digging pools was a different thing because you're going into people's backyards. You know what I mean, and I don't know. There was this, like a stigma. That's the word I was looking for earlier. Stigma. So there's a stigma with having colored hair, and piercings, and tattoos, and that type of stuff. And so people see somebody in their backyard, even though you're expecting somebody, and then you see this. You know what I mean? Some people that are having pools built, I'll say that, they have issues with that. Well, it frightens them. Yes, that's the thing. So,
well, they're generally of an older generation who remember when people who came to the door with tattoos on were usually robbing your place. Yeah. And I mean that's years and years and years ago, but it's still
how they're pursued or like it's still how it's perceived and like given out in movies and TV shows. Like the criminals always have tattoos. They always have a neck tattoo, especially. And it's funny that you mentioned that. I never realized that before until you said it. Yeah, it's so like, and if you have 2 different people on a show, the shadier one is going to be the one with the tattoos.
He smokes, yeah.
He definitely smokes or vapes. One of the 2. Yeah, so you're absolutely right.
Yeah, and the same thing goes for body piercings. There was a time when even working fast food, people would have to take their eyebrow piercing or nose piercing. They would have to take that out in order to work the counter. And now, I mean, everything goes.
Like for me, if I'm in the hiring process, and I'm looking for somebody, I don't care if your hair is blue or gray. It's so crazy how many professionals now actually do that. Do the 2 tones, like they'll be half blue, half purplish, whatever. You know what I mean? And they get along fine. It's fine. You can be a completely professional person. It's like you just choose to have your hair colored. I don't care. Like, you're expressing yourself. I don't care that at all. So that's fine. piercings I'm fine with. I just don't. Probably not an extraneous amount of piercings across my mouth. You know what I mean? I'm not. Probably wouldn't want that person to be a representative of the company for other people. Not just because I don't think that they'll do a great job. It's just that I know how much, from personal experience, I know how much resistance they would get by, if you were trying to gain new clients, if you're trying to prospect, if you're trying to have customer relations, you're trying to, what do they call this? Like the happiness inspectors of your company. You know what I mean? You're checking in with the clients. It gives a probably because like the film and what you've been told when you were a kid, the criminals always have tattoos, that type of stuff. And so like it.
Well, there's just a stereotype for sure.
It is stereotype. Thank you.
And it's still promulgated, not as much because it is becoming more mainstream. But when you're growing up and you're watching TV and you're seeing, like you said, the good guys, the bad guys, you can always tell based on the good guys wear the white hat and the bad guys wear the black hat.
Yes.
And that specific one has changed over time, but there's markers, and you're taught that.
But oddly enough, obviously this is strange. As a society, I guess we're just weird and people. So the good guy always wears white. Bad guy always wears black. But yet we have like staples of pop culture that are looked at as heroes, like Batman, who is completely black, calls himself the Dark Knight. You know what I mean? He is the Knight. But we look up to that, or like a lot of people do. I don't know. You're not a nerd. You know what I mean?
I know exactly. I know what I do.
You don't play games on your tablet or anything.
I do. I spend way too much time on my tablet.
I saw that. Anyways,
I'm a nerd for sure.
It's an interesting double standard, I guess.
Yeah.
So
I think it all comes down to what we talked about this before: is identifying your target audience.
Yeah.
And trying to put the best, an honest face forward. And you want to be authentic, but at the same time, you still want to make those concessions because you gotta meet them, partly where they are. You can't just expect these clients who have a certain expectation in life to change their entire worldview in order to do business with you.
Yeah.
You're trying to gain their business. So you have to decide what concessions you're willing to make. Like, are you willing to say, okay, I'm going to take off this piercing because my target audience is likely to find that offensive, and it doesn't bother me to take it off when I'm going after new clients.
Right.
So that to me is not inauthentic because I'm making the choice to do it, and it's you look at your pros and cons, you look at the cost versus reward, and you make that choice. It can still be an authentic choice to choose to do something specifically while you're at work.
Sure. It would have to be pretty extreme for me not to want to hire, just based on that, like. You ever seen the Snake Man? The guy that's got the tattoo, the scales all over his entire body. He's got his tongue,
he's got the
split tongue, and all that stuff. Probably not hiring him.
I guess that depends. Is he going to work in my basement and do IT?
I'm saying for me, because if you work for me, you're absolutely going to be in the face of the public and everything. And so dealing with all sorts of people. Oh my God, and it is exhausting trying to performative emotions. You know what I mean? Where you happen to. We talked a little bit about it last week, especially the politically motivated people, the older crowd, the conservative crowd, and then these over here, and I happen to be like, okay, well, all right, let's talk about this now.
Let's go back to the topic at hand because that was dangerous.
If I tell you my opinion, it's going to offend you, and then this conversation's over, and we're going to be enemies. And so I was like, no, anyways, being able to navigate that, it's kind of hard to do when So it's easy to do it personality-wise in a conversation, but it's so much harder to do if they're physically looking at you and you are the embodiment of what they think of as somebody you can't trust. You know what I mean? And so, crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I tell people when I'm looking to have someone represent my business, I don't care if I have blue hair. You can't see it because it's tied up, but I've got blue hair.
Yeah.
I have my tongue pierced, and I have several piercings on my body.
Yeah.
Not piercings, but tattoos on my body.
Yeah.
And I'm fine with it. But I'm also, at a glance, just a very clean cut kind of, you have to really look close to see those things. And so I tell people that as long as you're coming across like a well put together, well manicured person, I'm fine with those little special things that you're doing for yourself as identity. Just make sure that they're not distracting. If you're going to have an eyebrow piercing, that's fine, but don't have one that glows or flashes.
So,
next to your, left shoulder.
Yes, so those are good indicators too of like what their personality is, because it is self-expression.
Mhm.
If you just have a nose ring or something, that's that's not terribly out of the norm. You know what I mean? Like it's pretty, I've seen that a million times.
Right.
But
It's pretty mainstream now.
yeah. If you got the chain going from your ear to your lip, or like you said, the big glowing ear, that tells me that you are looking for attention, and we're probably going to have problems personality wise later down the road as an employee and employer relationship. So I probably, I would be looking for other warning signs, because that's a red flag to me. If you're dressing very flashy, or if your hair is, I don't know, set to where like your attention. If you're dressing like Lady Gaga, I know that you're probably a diva, and we're going to have some issues, and you're probably not the right person for this, because you won't be able to take instructions and do what I ask you to do.
I mean, but also you have to think about that when you're looking at potential clients. If that client is a certain way, and that gives you indications of what they're looking for, from you, they're going to be expecting you to be probably a little more outgoing and tolerate their outgoingness. Sure. If you're providing a service like you provide, they're going to want you to be able to tap into that so that you can represent their brand. And if you come in too straight laced, if you walked up to the Lady Gagas of the world and you're dressed in this uptight Victorian suit, then that might not be a good match.
I don't know.
Well, she's a little out there as far as
partnered up with Tony Bennett at one point. So I mean, like
bad example, but you get my point. That's another indicator. It's not just employees, but it can also be other people that you work with, whether they be vendors or clients.
Yeah. Yep, you're absolutely right. So it's so many. Oh, I don't know. There's just so many different levels to it, because it also boils down to like me just being the person and knowing how we're talking about, not just creating another stereotype of ourselves.
Right.
In this conversation that we're having.
And then also you have to navigate the discrimination aspect of that.
Yeah.
You can't discriminate against someone for self-expression.
Ooh, I'll tell you who I wouldn't hire though is anybody that works in a tattoo shop. I would never. Man, they had the worst attitude and like the self-entitlement and like it's just.
That's
oh my
not a
God.
tattoo artist thing. That's an artist thing.
I don't.
They tend to
are
very proud of a lot of the things, especially when they get to that point.
Well, I understand. You gotta have a reason though. You know what I mean? Give me a reason why you're so proud of this. If you just got clip art that you took off the internet and you pasted, I'm not talking about anybody specifically. Anyways, yeah, we went shopping for shops, looking at different places for tattoos, and oh man, there's there. I don't know, it's just like it never changes. I remember doing this in like early 2000s, and it was the same thing. Luckily, back then, I found somebody that was an award-winning tattoo artist that was being featured in the Ink magazine and Tattoo magazine and all this stuff. Great. Good attitude, great customer service. The whole place was really nice. Most tattoo shops you walk into, man, just bad attitude. Like, they look at you like, what the hell are you doing in here? Why did you step in here? It's like, the first thing they ask you, got an appointment? No, I don't have an appointment. I'm just checking out what you got. I want to see what you can do before I'm going to commit to this. Anyways, that's terrible. I would never hire anybody like that. So that's bad customer service, and like that whole experience, what I just gave you, that is not what I want for my business. When somebody calls us and be like, hey, I'm interested in the website or something. Like, oh yeah, what you want? No, gotta have a little bit more tact than that. But anyways, not against anything. Even what do they call it? Transmogrification? Is that what they call it? You ever heard of those?
I know that word, but I don't know that. I'm not sure I'm confident in the definition.
Well, you're not making me very confident either. So, anyways, the ones that have, so that will have implants of
like horns.
Sometimes you can do horns, but some people just do like little tiny beads. Like they might be just like around the outside of the eye here. Those are actually pretty cool. Or
sometimes it is actually a religious thing.
Scarification, yeah, for sure. Scarification. Ooh, that's a good point. That's what we jump on next. Scarifications, those type of things. So, like I said, if it's not, as long as you don't have dumbass tattooed on your forehead, which I've met people that had that. No, it's probably not going to be a great big deal, as far as getting hired. Unless you're, for for that role, you may be in the basement. You know what I mean? You might have to be.
You're just super, super good at what you did.
Yeah.
Now, when I was going through the process to join the Army, I had to have, I mean, it was a big deal that I had a tattoo. I had to go through all these different, several people had to witness it. They had to document it.
Yeah.
And that was because they were documenting for gang purposes. And at that time, that was the justification, and they ran into that a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I'm obviously not your typical gang member. I'm very much similar to what I was at that time,
Sure.
but I had the tattoo. And I thought that was really interesting because at that time, the only one I had was not visible. And so I had to completely disrobe in order to get this picture and have 7 different other people walk in and judge that it was not a gang tattoo.
Wow. That's crazy. So they did the same thing to you in prison. They take photos of all of your tattoos, of course, and document those, and they just assume that anything that's a symbol or anything like that must be gang related. Gotta be. You know what I mean? It's like, no, it's actually a band. It's like, this is a stupid band. I should never listen to it again. Anyway, it's very crazy.
So pro tip, make sure that you
yes. So that's good. Well, you brought up cultural differences too.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say like the 2 big ones, like especially in Arkansas.
Mm-hmm.
If we see this, we are usually very, very, very thrown off, and a lot of people I talk to, they become like makes them kind of nervous. Is if they see a turban, or if they I don't know the name for it, but the jewel that the
Indian? Yeah.
that's where
I knew it one. I had asked that question and memorized it for a short period of time, and now it's gone.
But they've been so, I don't know, I guess, trained and by the media, I guess.
There's a phobia, for sure.
Yeah,
Thank
you, yes. Phobia. So fear, like, wear a turban, you must be, with terrorist organizations or something like that. It's like, this is a whole body of people that come from multiple countries, you know what I mean? And so those 2 things, in Arkansas, I'm sure it's way more natural in other places. Which I had an interesting conversation last week with somebody. I was volunteering for United Cerebral Palsy Association, and we were doing putt golf, going around, and all these different courses. And one of the courses I went to, there was just a group of people that were there, and I was like, "Hey, you guys are here?" They were like, "No, we're actually in town for a wedding. We're from Maryland." And so it's like, okay, cool. So we had a conversation about like what the differences were between Maryland and Arkansas, and like they said they get treated like the Arkansas of the North. Well, like New York, New Jersey, and all of them, like they call them the South. They consider them the South. Yeah. I was like, that's weird because you guys are at the like northern point of the United States to us anyway. I guess if you go out and branch up toward New York and Maine and all that, it's different, but. Yeah, it was really, really interesting. And they also said don't get seafood here because it can't be fresh because you guys are landlocked. So come to Maryland, we do crab balls. I was okay, definitely. We did it one day. But yeah, we talk about the cultural differences. Then they seem they said honestly we're a little bit behind you guys. That's right. Yeah. They said a lot of he was talking about how it's such a listening to the way he was describing it. He was like, it's such a really diverse state that we have because you may have an oil driller next to a fisherman, next to a factory worker, next to, and I was like, this guy is not mentioning like different cultures or even like, he hasn't even thrown in there like major C-level executives or like, it's all baseline entry, workers that in like the bottom of the line of the industry, that make the industry go, of course, but I mean, the hard labor ones, that's all he's listing here. And I was like, that's interesting. Anyways, we were talking about like claims to fame as far as like the major businesses that come from your state. Of course, we have Walmart, Sam's, and the Waltons, and Tyson, and just a lot of other things. But they have, what do they have? The pepper company, McCormick. Yes, thank you.
I didn't know that.
McCormick, and there was a couple of other things that they had, but it was like mostly spices. So it comes out of Maryland, and I was like, okay, it was pretty interesting. But yeah, so there's some states, I guess, that, I thought that we would for sure be the one that was the else behind, but I guess not. As far as like cultural differences, and like we do get an influx of all sorts of immigrants and even second generation Americans, and whether they came to Arkansas first or they started off in California, New York, or most commonly it's like Florida and California, I think. Coming to Arkansas, I don't know why we're like a center point for those two states, but I can walk around downtown and I see this. I mean, I see the some women with head wraps. We'll see. I've seen some Indian people with. I wish I knew the name of that thing. God, it's so bad. And I don't know. It's kind of normal, as far as what I'm used to.
Right. Well, in downtown Little Rock and definitely in more metropolitan cities, you're going to see a lot more of that. But if you just go, 10 miles outside of the city and you get into, Sheridan, you're not going to see that as much.
Exactly. So yeah, I guess that's what my point was like if you're hiring an employee or if you have somebody that's even you, if you're a business owner and you. That's your religion, or you believe that, or it's your tradition. Your family wants you to do this, and you are still part of that. Then like, how do you get met? With that, what's the reaction of the people that you're trying to go at? And I guess it's know your clients, and I guess it's why a lot of minority businesses aim. Our target customer is other members of their same minority.
Well. Okay, so psychological to that point is we like to be around things that we recognize, which are like ourselves.
Yeah.
So even though I don't have a problem with whatever, but I tend to associate with things that are more like me. So I'm gonna, deal with people who like the same types of foods I like and like the same type of activities I like. So I'm surrounding myself with more even keeled, low key type people who like to sit around. That's my tribe.
Okay.
And it's not a racist thing. It's just that's the people I attract. So people that are very active and going out and doing things, it's not that I have anything against them. I just tend to not flock to them. So people who are in business tend to attract people that are like them because people that are looking for something look for things that they recognize. So it's a recognition thing. Comes all the way back from when we were babies. We look for things that are familiar. So we look for in our mother the things we recognize. So that's actually one of the early bonds is recognizing the characteristics of our mother. So that's that does that, but because we are more metropolitan now, because we are more worldly, we're getting more different types of clients. We have to look at. I'm not just going to attract Asian women that have lived in several different states.
Sure.
I'm going to want to attract men, and I'm going to want to attract people that are a different ethnicity. The white people, the brown people, all of the people. And I have to make sure that if I want to do that, I'm making myself available to them. So I'm meeting them somewhere where they still see familiarity, still feel comfort, still feeling like they can come to me, and I'm not off-putting by being too into my own personality. But I thought about this before you got on there. You also, as a business owner, can't say, okay, you can't work here if you have tattoos, because that will bite you. You can do that. You as a business owner, you can say no tattoos. That can be your thing.
Right.
But what about semi-permanent makeup?
Yeah.
What about semi-permanent, permanent?
That's true.
You have to think about just making a blanket statement is not necessarily going to. And then if you make that rule in your business, and then someone comes along and they've got their eyeliner tattooed on, and you let them work, well, then you've discriminated against someone else against your own policy because maybe you didn't hire the other person who had the neck tattoo or whatever the thing was that you chose not to hire them for in order to get someone else who then violated your own policy.
Yeah.
Even if it wasn't the intention. So unintended consequences.
That's a great question. Yeah. So the hiring part. So that's it's pretty interesting. I don't have anything else to add there at all. Yeah. So it's just so many. I guess if your staunch opinion on tattoos is that it comes along with the type of person I don't want to hire, then it's also probably the type of person that's like women should wear makeup, and so they probably don't even realize that it is semi-permanent or permanent. On this, they're just like, well, you wear makeup like you should.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And it's like, Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, we're all going to have a certain level of judgment, and that's kind of what we're talking about is tapping into the judgment of our target audience. Like, are we in tune with that so that we can make the choice to either attract them or not?
Yeah. And so so you were talking about meeting people in the middle, whenever you go out and meeting clients, if you're a business owner or an employee, whatever, and you're trying to develop a professional relationship, or whether it's networking or growing your client base, whatever it is. And let's say that you do have, colored hair or piercings or the head wraps or I don't know, jewelry that would, I don't know, whatever you're wearing, whatever you're doing with yourself to express yourself or to keep in line with your religious beliefs or your family traditions, and it's something that's oh, I caught my throat. It's something that is considered like radical because, like Arkansas, you don't have to go far to look a certain way that they consider you to be radical. You're very different. You know what I mean? Like we still have lots and lots and lots of dirt roads in Arkansas.
Yes,
you know what I mean? So there's lots of those towns that still exist. But even around like Little Rock, Sherwood, Jacksonville, Maumelle, that type of places. So if you do have that, how do you meet somebody in the middle if you do have this certain look? Because it's obviously probably shouldn't hide who you are. You know, I mean that's right. I mean, should you continue to express yourself?
It really is going to depend on, as long as you go into it with an open mind and an idea that I'm making a choice.
Yeah.
I'm making the choice to either continue wearing and looking this way and take the consequences, good or bad, that come from that, or I'm making the choice to make a change while I'm trying to attract clients. Then take or and be willing to take the consequences, good or bad, with that. So it's going to be a big part of looking at your environment, looking at your target audience, looking at your market, and finding out what can the market sustain. It's very much the same as determining, your price point. You're still going to look at the market and determine what the price point is that this market can handle, because I can charge more in LA than I can in, Sherwood.
Yeah.
And that's for the same service or for the same product, but because the culture in that area is different, you have to look at that differently. So in the same point, is my target audience going to accept this? And am I going to be able to make a living with crazy hair, crazy arms, crazy whatever? And if not, well, then that's his choice. Am I not going to be able to find my audience because they don't want to look at that? And maybe I ought to move to a more metropolitan area if that's the case.
Yeah, for sure. I guess so you're saying like you would probably be met with so much resistance that it might be better if you try to find your target audience in a different area.
I mean,
if we're just not there yet, you know what I mean? Because like Arkansas has come like in the past 20 years, right? We're always so slow to make any changes whatsoever. Like what our social norms are, what is acceptable in society, blah 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 blah. And like we still fight technology today, and I don't understand it at all. Like we had over a year and a half where like we couldn't leave our houses, right? Like,
and the only way to communicate with the outside world, including your groceries, was to use technology.
You can have your groceries delivered to you. You can pick up, stuff from the parking lot of your restaurant. Anyways, it's crazy. But so we have made some leaps and bounds, I think, as far as where we were in, like I said, 20 years ago. Like when I was, teenager, with all my crazy hair and contacts and all that stuff, man, I was completely radical. Oh man, people did not like. I would have people and stop in like Walmart or something and be like, I had this one woman who worked at Walmart, who worked in the jewelry department. I was just walking by. I wasn't messing with anybody. I was just walking by, and this woman called me over. She said, "Hey, I got a question. Why do you dress like the devil?" And I was so stunned. I was like, I had no idea that she was going to ask that. Oh man. Yeah, we ended up talking to her manager. So I pulled a Karen that day, but yeah.
Well, and
like now there's so many, I don't know, like I'm so surprised, honestly, that people are still dyeing their hair, because like usually trends like that, they die out and they go away, you know what I mean? But I see like stuff from the 90s that we were doing in high school is coming back out, right?
So are flare jeans. I'm so glad I don't wear jeans anymore.
So ours was like part of part of dyeing your hair and wearing the contacts and all this stuff, it was part of the whole music scene that I was part of, right? So the pop punk type of metal music, that type of stuff that we were into. But like now they're listening to like Billie Eilish, who was like the anti of all those things, just pop music and doing the hair and all that and dressing, eyeliner, everything, just like we were. And I'm like, I don't get it, man. This is like the opposite of what we were doing in the 90s. Yeah. Like that was our rebellion against the pop, genre. But now you pop kids are doing it 20 years later. I don't know. It's crazy. So I'm really surprised that exists, but it does. And if you look too radical, so you think that, it's rather than trying to go into a meeting with somebody here or somebody that is going to be very resistant against the way that you look and judge you based on that you should probably maybe look at a different kind of client pool.
Well, I mean, if you want to be successful, you're going to put yourself out there. And when you put yourself out there, you're opening yourself to judgment. That just happens.
Yeah.
So you have to decide as a business owner whether you're going to be okay with that.
Right.
Number one, are you going to be okay with that? And if you're not, well, then that's a problem because by putting yourself out there as a business owner, you're going to be judged. And so you decide, okay, I'm fine with being judged. I'm going to put myself out there. I'm going to open my business. I'm going to make it be a success. Yeah. And then you have to understand that what people are going to judge you. You've accepted that. Are you good with the way they're going to judge you? Like you can say, I don't care about what you're thinking, and you think your way, I'll think my way. But at the same time, you have to tap into the market who's going to give you money to do the thing. And if the market is going to be offended by how you look, I mean, you can choose to be a rebel. That is a choice, but it might be a choice that affects your bottom line in a way that doesn't allow you to grow. The way you want to. Now, when you become a bazillionaire, then you can totally revert back and become more of a rebel against, because you've already got the money. But you have to decide whether it's worth it. Risk versus reward. Are you going to risk being a rebel in order and not potentially alienate your clientele, or are you going to dial it back a little bit so that you can get some clients and put some money in the bank and then be a rebel later?
Which is interesting because like the Elon Musk and the Zuckerberg and Bezos, I'm trying to think of like who the major, even Trump or Richard Branson, like. None of these people, none of the ones that are like the major ones of business that are usually in like the top 10 of the Forbes list of like the top level of most influential companies, the most highest earning companies. Like nobody does anything. Like they all look really, really normal.
I think that's in part because they learned or began to express themselves in a way that didn't need to be a more physical expression.
Sure.
And it just wasn't something that they felt like they needed, because physical expression is something you feel like you need to do. I need to let the world know that my hair's blue. Like I'm a rebel. And these people maybe don't have that desire to do that. And it's not that it's bad. It's just maybe that's where their focus has changed to.
Oh yeah, because I believe that they could absolutely get away with it. You're a billionaire, so I mean, like people should look up to you no matter what. Yeah, so I completely understand that too, because like my rebellion, with the piercings and all this stuff and the hair and all this stuff, the way I was expressing myself back then, very different than what I do now, right? So you look at me and you're like, you were that? Yeah, so like I am, like we were talking about dress before, I figured out that like my self-expression and the way I'm comfortable and everything at work is probably going to be, like jeans and flat bottom shoes, you know what I mean? Like skate shoes, a Marvel shirt or something like that, and then my blazer on top of it, my name tag, and like lately I've been wearing this hat that I made. So I mean, like that's comfortable, and that's like the most expression that I give out there, and like I feel like I need to, you know what I mean? I don't feel like I need to do any more.
Right. Well, I mean, what's important to you right now is a little bit of branding and being comfortable and being who you are, and that is in line with your brand.
Yeah.
So you're right. You don't need to go get a face tattoo in order to express yourself because you're doing that with your brand.
Yeah, for sure. I wish I could take these tattoos off of me, honestly. I'm just so tired of them. But anyways, we've had that conversation. We're looking for cover-up artists. If it's going to be on me, I would rather it be something that I enjoy for years and years and years to comp. So there's a tip. If you're going to get a tattoo, if you're already in business or you're going to get a job, or you're thinking about getting a tattoo, oh my God, make sure that it is something that is timeless, not something that's going to date you to the time that you got the tattoo. And so obviously if you're getting I don't know, iPhone 12 tattooed on you, you know what I mean? It's like, that's going to look real bad.
There's somebody out there, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, there are. It's crazy. Or like a band that you're into. Oh my God, that's a whole different conversation. So I've got like three tattoos of bands I don't even listen to anymore. One of them is huge on my chest right here, and so like I have to have some different kind of work done. But yeah, great stuff, right? Like bad decisions when you're in your early 20s, which happens.
And then when you become, later in life and you decide to become an entrepreneur, you're going to have to deal with it.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know. It's crazy. It's like I would say prepare yourself, or like don't make any crazy crazy decisions while you're in your early 20s. But people are gonna do it anyway. That's why they do it. It's because you're in your early 20s. Right. And also, most people don't even know they're going to become entrepreneurs. Like nobody goes to high school and be like, "What do you want to be when you're growing up?" It's like, "I want to be an entrepreneur." There's probably like 0.001% of people that do that.
I didn't want to be an entrepreneur, but I knew I wanted to be a professional.
Yeah.
So
professional what though?
At the time I thought I was going into law, so
okay.
I was going to be a
I was
lawyer.
going to be an FBI agent.
You
so
are?
yeah.
That's could have. Yeah, I was going to go into law and then politics. I had this plan.
Yeah.
Glad that didn't work out for me, but I'm glad it didn't, because here I am and I do love what I do.
I watched a little bit too much X-Files. I want to be.
You'll be Mulder.
I want to be part of it. I don't want to be Mulder, but I want to be part of it. It's like, truth is out there. Yeah, that's great. Well, anything else to add to this? I mean, we covered, and I know, like when we stopped or like in a couple of weeks, whatever, we'll think of something else. Just like thought of this after we talked about how to dress. So and there's always new things that are popping up.
Yeah, I mean, like with anything in business, you want to think about, what your end goal is.
Yeah.
And then be true to that. Because, I mean, we're able to do that nowadays. 10 years ago, in order to get a bank account, you couldn't walk in with tattoos on your neck because they would judge you. And maybe not 10 years ago, but, years and years ago that.
Well, it depends where you're at.
So there was a lot of really staunch judgment. And now it's not so much. So you have more freedom in today's world to make those choices for yourself.
Yeah.
You're still going to have consequences. You're still going to have judgment, but you can still make it. If you choose to go the more radical route, that's a choice, and that can still work for you.
Yeah, for sure. So don't squash self-expression, but know who you are trying to serve and how they will, test it out at least. You know what I mean? Well, if you already have the piercings, or if you have your hair dyed or tattoos or whatever, you probably have a good sense of how people meet you. So, but then again, you might be a promoter for a promotion company for rock bands or whatever, and that's absolutely acceptable.
Right? You almost need to go get some fake ones just because you
don't
have
right?
enough.
They used to make those back in it was like 2003 or 2005 or something like that. But anyways, it was like these fake arm sleeves that you put on. Oh my God, those things were so ridiculous. But it looks real, like from a distance. It's like, man, did you get the whole sleeves done? No, these are fake.
So a little fun fact, and then I'll stop with the tattoos.
Yeah.
The movie The Mummy. The old movie, not the movie Mummy. So the first one they made,
the 30s?
Brendan Fraser.
Okay.
Yes, not too old. Not
that old.
Recently old.
Okay.
The Knocks on the Moon. She had it touched in the ink. They actually painted her whole body. Mummy 2, she wore a body stocking for the same tattoos.
Oh wow! I did not know that. Interesting.
Things that are not important that stay in my brain, unlike what the little dot's called.
Yeah. Well, it became important is now you've said it publicly. You also brought up like other like actors and stuff that have tattoos that are accepted that are also business owners. The Rock, his tattoos became iconic and part of him, and now every like in the beginning, like they would cover him up with makeup. In the first couple of movies that he did, like Game Plan or something like that. Anyways, like I don't know.
Yeah.
the first rock movies that weren't great,
He's still finding himself.
Yeah. But as he was finding himself as a brand, as a person, and as been more accepted, like every character he's played since then, they don't even try to cover up his tattoos, and so just like all these characters that he plays has the exact same body tattoos as he does in real life because they're like, screw it, people know he has tattoos, you know what I mean? Yeah. So it's on brand for him. It's what people expect.
And that's exactly like what we were talking about. Just because his brand is in Hollywood doesn't mean it isn't his brand.
Yeah.
So he is expressing himself. He's going after his target audience. Sure. He's like thinking it through with intention. It just happens to be that works for him, but it might not work for you if you're trying to open a daycare.
So I don't know. Like, as people listen to us talk about all these different subjects, like we are not like the definitive. We're not the authorities on everything.
We are by no means the resident expert on anything.
We are exactly. So we are thinking out loud. That's all we're doing. Like my opinion is changing as I'm talking to you because you're telling me things. And like we're just having a conversation here.
Well, I think that's the point that I try to make in each podcast. Is not so much to teach, but to inspire thought. Tell people to think about the things we're talking about and develop their own opinions.
Yeah, and I think it's important for us to all to have those kinds of conversations, with somebody else. So find yourself, if you don't have a mentor or somebody else that you can confide in, like find somebody that you can talk to about these things, because if you just assume, man, it puts you in trouble. It's like you'll spend the majority of your time trying to figure out, how people think on your own. So like, it's all psychology. So talking to somebody else that's been having experience, or talking to a group of people
or listening to podcasts of people who are willing to share their experiences is also
test that out. Yeah. Don't assume that we're right.
Oh no, just use it as a thought generator and then go out and forge your way.
Yes, here's one alternate reality. Let's try that out. See if that works. Okay. Well, if you're watching this on YouTube, that you can find us on any of the podcast streaming services around the globe. And if you're an audio listener, you, of course, can find us on YouTube on the Healthy Business Podcast. Please like, subscribe, give us some good reviews, share, all that stuff, comment, whatever you want to do. Because as we thinking of future subjects, we'd love to hear like what people would like to talk about or like to hear us babble on about.
Or good, bad, ugly. If you think that he shouldn't wear the hat or should.
Yeah.
Love their feedback. I like that.
I like how it was directing towards me. I thought you were going to go through something.
I'm pretty nondescript
shared
here.
Space. Okay. So you're fine. I get it. Okay. Well, until next time.
Until next time.
Keep your business healthy.